Agnes had been a widow for many years. She had no children from her late husband, and though she was an old woman, she was not poor. Her husband had left her enough money to live comfortably, but despite the wealth, Agnes was lonely. Since her husband's passing, she had lived alone in a quiet house. The days passed slowly, and at first she didn't mind the silence. She kept herself busy with small chores around the house and cared for her garden. But as the years went by, loneliness started to weigh heavily on her heart. She realized that she had no friends to share her thoughts with, no one to laugh or talk to, and no one to sit with her at the dinner table. Agnes had always been a private person, but now the solitude was hard to bear. At times, she would sit in the quiet of her home and think about her late husband, remembering their shared moments and the life they once had. Her memories were sweet, but they also brought sadness. She found herself crying often, wishing she could go back to those days when they were together, before he had passed away. It was as if a part of her heart was still stuck in those memories. The loneliness grew stronger, and Agnes could no longer ignore it. She began to leave the house more often, taking long walks by the river that ran near her home. The sound of the flowing water soothed her, and the beauty of nature seemed to calm her troubled mind. Agnes would sit by the riverbank, watching the water flow gently by, and let her thoughts drift like the leaves carried downstream. Every now and then she would bring a glass of wine with her, sipping it slowly as she admired the peaceful scenery. The fresh air and the soft whispers of the wind helped her forget her sorrow, even if just for a moment. She found comfort in the simple things, the chirping of the birds, the rustling of the trees, and the gentle breeze that kissed her face. It became a routine for Agnes. She would sit by the river every day, hoping that the quiet moments would bring her peace. She often thought about the days when her husband was still alive, how they would sit together by the river and talk for hours, enjoying each other's company. But now it was just her, alone with her thoughts, trying to make sense of the emptiness that lingered inside her. As time passed, Agnes learned to embrace these moments by the river. She began to feel a sense of calm in the solitude, as though the river, nature, and the universe were reminding her that it was okay to be alone sometimes. Even though she still missed her husband deeply, she started to appreciate the peace that came with her solitude. And little by little, the loneliness no longer felt as heavy. It was as though the river had become her friend, and nature had become her companion. One afternoon, as Agnes sat by the river, enjoying the calmness of nature, a young man approached her. He was walking along the riverbank when he noticed Agnes sitting alone, gazing out at the flowing water. He paused for a moment, as if unsure of whether he should continue, but then, with a sudden decision, he sat down next to her. Agnes was taken by surprise. She had always been alone by the river, and the last thing she expected was for someone to sit beside her. She couldn't understand why he would choose to sit next to an old woman like her. The young man's presence felt odd to her, and she wondered what his intentions were. He smiled gently and turned to her. "Hello," he said. "My name is David. What's yours?" Agnes, still a little startled, replied, "I'm Agnes." She studied the young man with curiosity, her mind racing with questions. David spoke again, this time with a kind tone. "I've seen you here many times, sitting alone by the river. I decided today that I would come over and speak to you. There's something about you that I really admire." Agnes was taken aback. "Admire? How could you admire an old woman like me?" she asked, her voice tinged with a mix of surprise and uncertainty. "Are you here to mock me, or to make my troubles worse?" David shook his head quickly. "No, not at all. I would never mock you or add to your problems. In fact, I've been looking for someone like you. I know I'm younger than you, and the age difference between us is quite large. But please, hear me out. I have been hurt many times by younger women. I've tried to find love with them, but it never worked. I've been hurt, betrayed, and disappointed more than I can count. So now, I've decided that I want something different. I want to be with someone who will truly love me for who I am. I want to be with someone like you, Agnes. I want to love you, and I want you to love me back. I would even marry you if you would have me." Agnes sat there in stunned silence. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. A young man was telling her that he loved her. She looked at David carefully, trying to read his face, his eyes. Was he serious? Or was this some kind of joke? She had never expected to hear such words. She had grown used to being alone, to being forgotten, and to the idea that her time for love had passed. David looked at her with sincerity. Please, Agnes, just give me some time to explain, and I promise you, if you give me a chance, you won't regret it. I truly believe we can make this work. I have no interest in younger women anymore. I want to be with you. Agnes's heart was torn. She had spent so many years alone, and the idea of someone, especially a young man, wanting to be with her felt so foreign. Her mind raced with questions. Could it be possible? Could someone really love her at her age? Was this just a passing moment for David, or was he being serious? Her thoughts were swirling, and she wasn't sure what to believe. I don't know what to say, Agnes replied softly. This is all so sudden. I need some time to think about it. I've lived so many years without love, I don't know if I can open my heart again. I'll think about it and get back to you. Give me 3 days, and I'll let you know. David nodded, his face full of understanding. Of course, take all the time you need, Agnes. I'm not in a hurry. I just want you to know that if you do decide to give me a chance, I will love you with all my heart, and I promise you, you won't regret it. Agnes looked at him for a long moment, unsure of what to feel. She had never imagined such a proposal, and her heart felt both heavy and light at the same time. She had so many questions, so many doubts, but something in David's words stirred something inside her. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she had thought. As David stood to leave, he gave her a gentle smile. Thank you, Agnes, for hearing me out. I'll wait for your answer. Take care of yourself. He walked away slowly, leaving Agnes to her thoughts. As Agnes watched him disappear into the distance, she felt a strange mix of emotions. Her heart was filled with uncertainty, but there was a flicker of hope too. For the first time in a long while, she felt the possibility of something more, something new. Could love really come to her at this stage in her life? Could she open her heart to someone again? For the next few days, Agnes thought constantly about David. She walked by the river, just as she always did, but now her mind was occupied with the idea of love and companionship. She wondered if it was too late for her, or if it was just the right time to take a chance on something new. 3 days later, Agnes made her decision. She was still unsure, still a little afraid, but she knew she had to answer David. She wasn't ready to close the door on love just yet. With a deep breath, she stood up from her usual spot by the river and began walking toward the place where David had first sat with her. After Agnes returned home that evening, she sat alone in her cozy living room, her thoughts racing as she replayed everything David had told her. Her heart felt heavy, but in a good way. She whispered to herself, "This is what I've been waiting for. I thought love would never come to me again because of my age, but now, here it is. Oh God, you are great. Thank you for bringing this young man into my life. I can't believe it, but I already love him." Agnes sat there for a while, thinking about the love she and David could share. She had never imagined that at her age she would experience love again. Yet here she was, excited and filled with hope. She knew her heart had already made up its mind, and she was ready to take a chance on this love. 3 days later, as promised, Agnes met David by the riverbank. With a gentle smile, she looked into his eyes and said, "David, I've thought about it, and I've made my decision. I accept your proposal. I love you too." David's face lit up with joy. He couldn't contain his happiness. He laughed, his heart overflowing with excitement. "You don't know how much this means to me, Agnes. I promise you, from this day forward, I will love you more than anything." From that moment on, David and Agnes spent as much time as they could together. They would sit by the river, talking, laughing, and enjoying each other's company. Their love grew stronger each day. They cracked jokes, shared stories, and found happiness in the little things. Their bond was deep, and they became inseparable. One day, Agnes was in her upstairs room, speaking to David on the phone. She was so caught up in their conversation, so full of love and excitement, that she didn't realize she was standing too close to the edge of the stairs. As she moved, she missed her step and fell, tumbling down the stairs with a loud cry. "My sugar boy has killed me. Love has killed me," she cried as she fell. Agnes landed hard, breaking her bones and lying in pain. Some good Samaritans quickly rushed to her side, helping her to the hospital. David, hearing about the accident, rushed to the hospital to be by her side. He arrived just as they were bandaging Agnes up. Her face was pale with pain, but when she saw David, she managed to smile. "Agnes, nothing will stop me from marrying you," David said, holding her hand gently. "I'm here for you, and I'll be here every step of the way." Over the next few months, Agnes recovered in the hospital, with David by her side every single day. They would sit together on the hospital bed, talking about their future and dreaming of their life together. David would whisper sweet words of love to her, and Agnes felt the warmth of his love surround her. Despite the pain, her heart was full of joy. She felt blessed to have David in her life. She thought, "God has answered my prayers." After weeks of recovery, Agnes was finally well enough to leave the hospital. David was there to support her through every part of her healing process, never once leaving her side. Soon, they began planning their wedding, a celebration of their love and commitment to each other. The wedding day arrived, and it was everything Agnes had ever dreamed of. Their friends and families gathered to witness the joining of two hearts. It was a beautiful ceremony, filled with laughter, love, and joy. Agnes felt like the luckiest woman alive. She had found love when she least expected it, and now she had a wonderful man by her side. Her heart was overflowing with happiness. David and Agnes continued to live happily ever after, cherishing each moment they spent together. They knew that life was precious, and they promised to never take each other for granted. Their love grew stronger with each passing day, and together they built a life full of joy, laughter, and love. Moral lessons from the story. 1. Love has no age limit. Love can find us at any stage in life, even when we least expect it. Agnes and David's story shows that it's never too late for love, no matter how old we are. 2. Don't let fear stop you from taking chances. Agnes was afraid to open her heart again, but she took a chance on love, and it changed her life. 3. True love is about commitment. David showed his commitment to Agnes when he promised to stay with her, even in difficult times. True love is about being there for each other through thick and thin. 4. Gratitude is powerful. Agnes's gratitude towards God and for the love she found shows the power of being thankful for the blessings in our lives, no matter how small or big they may seem. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video and read the story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and stick around for more stories like this one. Your support means the world to me, and I'm so grateful to have you as part of my community. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories and lessons. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.